Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. Welcome back to our course in educational psychology. I'm glad to see you all here, ready to dive into another important topic in our journey together. In our last session, we explored the concepts of motivation and engagement, the invisible spark that fuels a learner's curiosity and the invisible interest they bring into their studies. We discussed how motivation comes from within, driven by personal goals and interest, or from external factors like praise, rewards, and recognition. We also looked at how engagement shows up in the classroom through participation, persistent, and genuine interest in the task at hand. Today, we are shifting our focus to another interesting and inspiring area: intelligence, giftedness, and creativity. These are not just academic terms, they shape the way we understand our students' abilities and potential. We will talk about what intelligence really means, how giftedness is identified and nurtured, and how creativity can be encouraged in every learner, not just those labeled as talented. But the end of the today's sessions, you will have a deeper understanding of how these traits influence learning, and more importantly, how we as educators can recognize and develop them in our classrooms. Let's start with the simple question: what exactly is intelligence? Most people think of intelligence as being smart, scoring high on a test, solving tricky problems. But intelligence is far more complex. It's about learning, understanding, reasoning, and applying knowledge to real life situations. For centuries, people saw intelligence as a single measurable trait, one number that defines your IQ. But today, researchers agree it's multidimensional. A child who can build complex structures, exchange peace between friends, or create a tune on the piano in showing intelligence. If it is not the kind measured by a traditional exams, culture shapes what we value as intelligence. In some communities, being able to memorize oral history is highly prized. In other, creativity or emotional insight might matter more. So, when we talk about intelligence, we are taking about many different abilities: cognitive, social, emotional, all interlocked together. When we understand that intelligence is not a single number but a rich blend of abilities shaped by culture, experience, and context, the next question becomes: how do we make sense of it all? Over the years, psychologists have developed different models to explain the many faces of intelligence, each offering its own way of seeing how our mind works. Models of intelligence. Psychologists have created models to help us understand how intelligence works. Spearman's G. Charles Spearman believed in one general factor, G, that underlies all cognitive abilities. If you are good at one kind of thinking, you are likely good at others. That's why someone strong in math might also pick up languages quickly. But this view is criticized for oversimplifying the rich diversity of human abilities. Cattell's fluid and crystallized intelligence. Raymond Cattell split intelligence into two types: fluid intelligence, solving new problems, thinking on your feet. Crystallized intelligence, the knowledge and skills you gain over time. Think of fluid intelligence as your raw mental horsepower and crystallized intelligence as your well-shocked mental library. Fluid may peak in young adulthood, but crystallized keep growing with experience. Gardner's multiple intelligences. Howard Gardner challenged the one size fits all. He suggested 8 intelligences: linguistic, logical, mathematical, spatial, musical, bodily kinesthetic, and interpersonal, intrapersonal, naturalistic. In his view, a brilliant dancer and a gifted mathematician are equally intelligent, just in the different ways. Schools have involved this idea to broaden how we recognize students' strengths through some researches questions how separate these intelligences really are. Sternberg's triarchic theory. Robert Sternberg said success requires 3 kinds of intelligence: analytical, logical, problem solving, creative thinking in new ways, practical, applying knowledge to everyday life. Imagine a student designing a science project. Analytical intelligence helps them structure the experiment. Creative intelligence helps them come up with an original idea. And practical intelligence helps them present it clearly to the judges. Emotional intelligence. Peter Salovey, John Mayer, and Daniel Goleman put emotions on the map of intelligence. Emotional intelligence is about recognizing, understanding, and managing your own emotions and those of others. In school, emotional intelligence can mean handling conflict, staying calm during exams, or encouraging a struggling teammate. While these models give us different ways to understand and categorize intelligence, they also raise a deeper questions. Are these abilities something we are born with or stuck with, or can they grow and change over time? This brings us to the important debate on whether intelligence is fixed or changeable. This is often called the mindset debate, a discussion about how we view our own abilities. A fixed mindset assumes intelligence is set in stone. You are either good at this or you are not. People with this view may avoid challenges for fear or failure. In contrast, a growth mindset sees intelligence as something that can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. Students with a growth mindset tend to face challenges, learn from mistakes, and keep going when things get tough. For educators, nurturing this mindset can transform not only academic results but also students' confidence and lifelong attitudes toward learning. Understanding how our beliefs shape learning naturally leads to another question. If intelligence can grow, what influences that growth the most, our genetic makeup or the environment around us? This brings us to the classic nature versus nurture debate. So, where does intelligence actually come from? Psychologists often frame this as the nature versus nurture question. Nature refers to our genetic inheritance, the trait and abilities we are born with, which set the basic potential for our intellectual development. Nurture, on the other hand, involves the environment we grow up in, shaping how that potential is expressed and developed over time. Research, including twin studies, shows that intelligence is partly heritable. Yet, environmental factors play a crucial role. Adequate nutrition, rich early learning experiences, quality schooling, supportive relationships, and emotional safety can all boost intellectual growth. In truth, nature and nurture are never separate forces. Understanding that both genetic potential and life experiences shape intelligence naturally leads to another question: how do we actually assess it? Over the years, psychologists have developed various tools to measure intelligence, each with its own strength and limitation. Measuring intelligence, we have developed a variety of tools to try to measure intelligence. Though none are perfect or capable of capturing every dimension of human ability. The Stanford Binet test, one of the earliest and the most influential IQ tests. It compared a child's mental age to their actual age, offering insight into learning needs. While useful for identifying children who might require extra support or improvement, it proved less effective or accurately assessing adults. Wechsler scale. David Wechsler advanced the field with the concept of the deviation IQ, which compares an individual score to the average performance of the others in the same age group. His widely used tests are WAIS for adults, WISC for children, and WPPSI for preschoolers. Assess a range of abilities including reasoning, memory, vocabulary, and processing speed. IQ typically follow a bell curve, average 85 to 115, gifted above 130. Significant, significant sport needs below 70. Still, numbers alone cannot capture creativity, motivation, social skills, or cultural differences that also define intelligence. Today, we explored intelligence as more than a number or narrow skill. It is a web shaped by nature and nurture, reflected in logic, creativity, emotional awareness, and decision making. Measuring intelligence can guide sport, but not test captures full potential. Scores must not define worth or overshadow imagination, empathy, or determination. Next, we turn to giftedness and creativity, showing potential in many forms. Our duty as an educator is to nurture it wherever it appears, linking intelligence, creativity, and giftedness to real classroom strategies. Assalamu alaikum and goodbye for now.